Let's continue the chapter. As they are talking, George Pearson, Mrs. Pearson's husband, enters. He is a man in his 50s who is characterized by deep sincerity but is self assertive. As one can infer, he must be a healthy man who moves at a slow pace. As he enters, he notices that Doris is crying. He asks her, "What's the matter?" and is sure the matter won't be worthy of crying. Doris tells her father to wait and observe while she is crying and runs out of the scene. George Pearson is left amazed at how she ran and what she said. Mrs. Pearson replies to George's rhetorical question. He is still confused about what is going on. Mrs. Pearson advises him to ask Doris what she meant. As Mrs. Pearson raised her glass to sip her stout, George gets even more shocked. Mrs. Pearson lets him know that he saw right. Still amazed, he asks the reason behind her drinking. Still maintaining her calm, she simply replies by saying that she is drinking it because she wanted to. He is shocked at the sight of Mrs. Pearson drinking, and that too during the day. She counter questions and asks what is the problem with drinking at this time of the day. He explains that he is so shocked because Mrs. Pearson had never been seen drinking during daytime. She tells him that there is nothing to be shocked about. If he hadn't seen her do it till date, he is seeing her do it now. In contempt, he tells Mrs. Pearson that he didn't like the idea of her drinking at this hour. It blew his mind at once. Responding to his reaction, she says that it could be a nice change for him. He did not understand what she was trying to say. She explains that it's been a long time since she amazed him. He tells her how he doesn't appreciate change or surprises, and this is something Mrs. Pearson should know by now. He then changes the topic by telling Mrs. Pearson that he forgot to tell her about the special snooker match and the supper. Also, he won't be needing any tea that afternoon. She tells him that there isn't any tea made, so it's fine, even if we forgot to convey. Shocked at her reply, he asks Mrs. Pearson what she just told him. Mrs. Pearson replies and says that it has turned out to be well because he didn't need any tea. He asked Mrs. Pearson, what if he wanted some? Mrs. Pearson expresses her bafflement at the fact that George Pearson is angry that the tea he didn't want is not made. She suggests that he should try this behavior at the club sometime. He is not sure as to what Mrs. Pearson is telling him to try at the club. She explains the tea situation in context of the club where he goes to the bar to tell them that he doesn't want a beer, and then he gets mad at them because they hadn't already poured some for him. She suggests that he try and see their reaction. He pretends to not have understood what Mrs. Pearson just said. Mrs. Pearson says that the people at the club would make fun of him even more than they did. Now he gets irritated when Mrs. Pearson says that and tells her that they don't make fun of him. Mrs. Pearson tells him that he should have known this by now. If there would have been someone else in his place, they would have known by now. She also tells him that he is famously made fun about at the club and they called him Pompey Ompy Pearson because they think he is self absorbed and overbearing. George is horrified at her words and denies it. Mrs. Pearson expresses how hurtful it has been for her seeing her husband leaving her and wanting to go to a place where people make fun of him behind his back. She further adds that he does it every night instead of going out with Mrs. Pearson, who doesn't at least make him look like a fool. Cyril enters the room, holding a glass of milk in one hand and a slice of cake in the other. George is confused and turns to look at Cyril, seeking his help. He asks Cyril angrily if he knew this had been going on in the club, leaving Cyril embarrassed and unwilling. Though uneasily, he told George that they indeed call him names. George curses himself slowly that if they call him names at the club, then he may go to hell. He leaves the scene in shock and despair, as if he has been hit on the head. Cyril sees him go and then turns to talk to Mrs. Pearson. Cyril puts forward his point of view and says it was not nice of Mrs. Pearson to have done that to his father. She not only hurt his feelings but also Cyril's. She then imparts some words of wisdom by telling him that truth only hurts for a short while and it is fine to get one's feelings hurt at times. She further mentions that this would not have happened if his father didn't go to the club every other day. He doesn't believe in whatever Mrs. Pearson has to say at the moment. Mrs. Pearson makes it clear that she didn't invite Cyril's opinion on the matter. She mentions that he also doesn't have enough knowledge to talk about these things because all he knows is spending time and money on greyhound races and ice shows. He mentions that he doesn't find any problem in doing so if it brings him joy. Mrs. Pearson lets him know that she has no problem with him doing all those things if they are really bringing him joy. She asks him if he is actually getting the enjoyment he claims to have achieved, and in addition, it is taking him nowhere good. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. Thinking that someone must have visited him, Cyril goes to check the door and comes back after a while only to tell Mrs. Pearson that Mrs. Fitzgerald has come to see her. He doesn't regard her very respectfully and asks Mrs. Pearson if she really wants to see her. Very clearly she replies that she indeed wants to see Mrs. Fitzgerald and also tells him to treat her with some respect as she is a delightful woman who talks more sense than him. While Cyril guides Mrs. Fitzgerald to Mrs. Pearson finishes her stout and greets her when she finally sees her. Hesitating, she enters and asks if all is going well. Cyril instantly disagrees. Mrs. Pearson, in an attempt to cover the situation, tells Mrs. Fitzgerald that everything is all right and instructs Cyril not to speak. Considering Mrs. Pearson is being unfair, he bursts out and asks her, why shall he not speak? Mrs. Pearson shouts at Cyril and tells him to obey what she asked him to. Mrs. Fitzgerald tries to interrupt. Mrs. Pearson instantly replies and tells Mrs. Fitzgerald to stay out of her personal and family matter. She tries to mention Cyril and is again interrupted, but this time by Cyril. Mrs. Fitzgerald gets worried and moves to the seat. She then expresses her worries. Mrs. Pearson replies that what she has been doing was long due. She is just getting them to behave nicely. Moving closer to Mrs. Pearson, Mrs. Fitzgerald asks her if George is home. Mrs. Pearson replies yes and tells her how she told him what they said about him at the club. Mrs. Fitzgerald, unknowing of the truth and being naturally innocent as she is, thinks they thought highly of him. Mrs. Pearson replies that Mrs. Fitzgerald thinks wrong and now George also knows the truth. Mrs. Fitzgerald, being a nice person, she did not want George's feelings hurt and adds that she wished Mrs. Pearson hadn't done this. Mrs. Pearson tells her that she has done her good and that its consequences would soon be visible. Everyone will start respecting and obeying her. Mrs. Fitzgerald tells Mrs. Pearson that she doesn't want to be manipulative or dominating and then to be submissive. A bit annoyed, she answers that this is happening regardless of whether she wants it to happen or not. George enters the room with a sad face. He is not happy to see Mrs. Fitzgerald. He sits on the armchair, sits on it, and lights his pipe to smoke. He looks at the two women. Mrs. Fitzgerald is looking at him curiously. George enters the scene in not a very pleasant mood. He is also a bit shocked at the sight of Mrs. Fitzgerald in his house. While lighting his pipe, he notices Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is awkwardly regarding him. A bit confused, he asks if she is Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Fitzgerald, not very sure of what she should say, replies awkwardly while greeting him by his name. He gets shocked at hearing Mrs. Fitzgerald calling him by his name. She gets nervous and apologizes for addressing him by his name. Mrs. Pearson instantly interferes and tells George that it's no big deal even if she called him by his name. He is not some Duke of Edinburgh who is not supposed to be called by his name and someone who deserves that honor. George loses his temper and points out that bringing the Duke of Edinburgh in between this conversation makes no sense. He further adds that Mrs. Fitzgerald calling him by his name doesn't matter because already prevailing situation is much worse. There is no tea ready and he is being called names at the club. Not to forget poor Doris, who is crying endlessly. Now, Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is actually Mrs. Pearson, immediately interrupts and shows concern for Mrs. Pearson's family. On seeing her family at unease, the real Mrs. Pearson forgot that she is in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald. Hence, she speaks up. George is now annoyed at Mrs. Fitzgerald for being so concerned and acting as if it's her own family matter. He feels she is interfering in his family matters. He tells her to let them solve their issues on their own by leaving their house. Mrs. Pearson immediately interferes and scolds George for being so rude and disrespectful. She tells him to be a bit polite next time an acquaintance of her visits her instead of just barging in the room and sitting without greeting them. Mrs. Fitzgerald is all awkward in this situation and tells Mrs. Pearson that she has no problem with George's behavior. Mrs. Pearson declares that this is not how things are going to work in her house and her family will have to act disciplined and respectful. George is scared and acts as if he did not understand. He asks her to repeat what she said. Mrs. Pearson replies in a taunting way and asks George to go to the club for that special night. She tells him that he should hurry for his friends would be waiting for him. He must not disappoint them. George tells Mrs. Pearson that that is right. He asks her to proceed and not mind his presence while laughing at him in front of the neighbors. In the process, he loses his cool and starts shouting about Doris crying. Then he asks her what was wrong with her if she had gone crazy. Mrs. Pearson springs up and reacts immediately. She warns him that if he ever uses this tone and such voice with her, she will slap his big fat face. Mrs. Fitzgerald tries to calm down Mrs. Pearson, and in the process, she accidentally calls her Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Pearson finally sits. George is startled by this and says that is it him who is not in his senses or Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Pearson, because these two have been acting very weirdly. He doesn't understand why she called her Mrs. Fitzgerald, that is, by her own name. Mistakes like that aren't very usual. He finds it odd that she is telling herself to stop doing something she is not doing in the first place. He is of the opinion that it would make more sense if she would stop Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Pearson gets heated up again and challenges George to repeat his words. George is intimidated and accepts. Doris enters slowly from the left side. She looks sad. She is wearing the wrap. Mrs. Pearson is sitting on the seat. As Doris enters with her pale face looking worse than before, Mrs. Fitzgerald greets her politely. Though in a terrible state of mind, she greets her back. Mrs. Fitzgerald, again forgetting who she actually is now, she asks Doris about her plan with Charlie Spence. Doris, who is already annoyed, replies in an irritated tone and asks Mrs. Fitzgerald why she is so bothered about her plans. Mrs. Pearson, in a bid to continue what she has been doing all day, interrupts and stops Doris from behaving that way. Mrs. Fitzgerald again tells her that Doris' behavior is fine. Mrs. Pearson tells Mrs. Fitzgerald that Doris' behavior is something she is not going to tolerate in her house and instructs her to reply to Mrs. Fitzgerald properly. Doris is shocked at her response and looks at her father astonished. George, having lost all hope about Mrs. Pearson, tells Doris that even he cannot make the situation better. He has given up handling it and feels it has run out of his control. Mrs. Pearson, stern on her stand, orders Doris to answer Mrs. Fitzgerald properly. Doris gives in and replies to Mrs. Fitzgerald and tells her that she had cancelled the plans she had for the night with Charlie Spence. Mrs. Fitzgerald gets concerned and asks her the reason for cancelling it. Doris, getting angry again, begins telling Mrs. Fitzgerald how her mother, Mrs. Pearson, had been behaving all day. She says that Mrs. Pearson had been finding ways to make her feel bad about Charlie, commenting about his appearance and intelligence. Mrs. Fitzgerald now turns a bit bold when she decides to take a stand against Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Pearson bluntly tells Mrs. Fitzgerald to stay out of her family's matter and manage her own. George barges in and asks Mrs. Pearson if she is going to behave this way with Mrs. Fitzgerald as well. Mrs. Pearson immediately replies to George and tells him that his friends must be waiting for him at the club. She wants Doris not to cry again. Mrs. Fitzgerald finally decides to take a stand and tells George and Doris to leave both of them alone so that they can talk in private, and in the process she was again about to call her wrongly but somehow handles the situation. She gives them assurance that she is the only one who can handle the situation, so it would be of their benefit only if they would give both some time alone. George comments that he is relieved to hear that at least someone can handle the situation because he knows he can't. Both of them leave the scene and the actual Mrs. Pearson moves towards a table, expecting Mrs. Fitzgerald to do the same. She tells Mrs. Pearson that is the time that they should switch their places back. Mrs. Pearson asks her why they should switch their places back. She tells Mrs. Pearson that things have gone way beyond her imagination. She knows that her family is in trouble and she can't stand that fact. Thus, she wants them to change back to their original selves. As she moves and sits on the other side of the table, she tells Mrs. Fitzgerald it would be better for them to have the taste of this medicine for a bit longer. She tells her that a lot of progress has been made already, but a little more effort would do wonders. She stays on her opinion and wants to switch back. She tells her to do it a bit fast. Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is actually Mrs. Pearson, is very eager to undo the trick, and this stretches her arm in order to hold hands with Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Pearson also stretches her hands forward. Mrs. Pearson asks Mrs. Fitzgerald, stay quiet for a while till she performs the magic trick. They undergo the same process and the real Mrs. Fitzgerald whispers the same words. The transition is now finally completed and successful, just like before. But the only difference now is that they are back to their real bodies. Now both of them are in their own bodies. Mrs. Fitzgerald, who got to play the role of Mrs. Pearson, expresses that she had fun during the process. Mrs. Pearson, who had to go through the feeling of seeing her family being terrible, obviously didn't have fun. Mrs. Fitzgerald warns Mrs. Pearson not to go easy on them again, otherwise, all the efforts would go waste. She replies that she will try her best. She says that the time available to her was not satisfactory, as an hour and two of the same treatment would leave a lasting impression. Mrs. Pearson lets her know that she is certain of some changes. All she is unsure about is how she will clarify things. She wants her not to go on apologizing for the treatment, as it would reverse the effects of all the hard work. Mrs. Pearson speaks up and says that it is easy for Mrs. Fitzgerald to say all those things because this isn't her family. Mrs. Fitzgerald makes her aware that it was Mrs. Pearson who accepted that they are spoiled brats who didn't appreciate her. Mrs. Pearson even said that she wanted things to improve. So, Mrs. Fitzgerald again emphasizes that any apology would bring them back to being rude to her. She goes to the extent of saying that being dominating once in a while would keep them on track. She says that Mrs. Pearson can even test this if she wants. Mrs. Pearson asks Mrs. Fitzgerald how they can test whatever she is saying. Mrs. Fitzgerald asks her to name one thing they are reluctant to do, but Mrs. Pearson wants them to. For example, staying at home once in a while. She adds that she also wants them to give her a hand in preparing the evening meal. She further asks if there is anything she likes to do, irrespective of whether they like doing it or not. Mrs. Pearson hesitates at first, but then tells Mrs. Fitzgerald that she likes to play rummy, but she only gets to play it at Christmas. While moving towards the door, she once again emphasizes how important it is for Mrs. Pearson to be a little strict. Mrs. Pearson then calls George, Cyril, and Doris inside, after which she leaves. Mrs. Pearson smiles at her family, Somehow relieved, they all smile back. Doris speaks up first, a bit nervous. Still smiling, she says she knows exactly what they should do since they are not going out. While leaving, Mrs. Fitzgerald reminds Mrs. Pearson again. Mrs. Pearson nods in an attempt to show that she remembers whatever Mrs. Fitzgerald has told her. She then asks her family if they have any objections. He says in a polite tone that they do not have any objection and are ready to do whatever she says. She very politely tells them that she wishes to play rummy with them, and after that she would like the children to help cook supper so that she can talk to George. George agrees, but while looking at his children in a testing way and asks about their opinion. Cyril instantly agrees. Doris hesitates a bit. Mrs. Pearson speaks boldly and asks Doris. Doris also agrees instantly. Mrs. Pearson smiles at Mrs. Fitzgerald, wishing her goodbye. As Mrs. Fitzgerald exits, the family moves together round the woman of the house and the curtain falls. So, this is all about Mother's Day.